Upfield's best music in the morning. 105 Upfield FM.
29 minutes now to 11, and it's a very warm welcome back to our local MP, Nus Ghani. Nus, good morning.
Good morning.
Um,
Can I just first say on the record, I possibly can dance, but you haven't asked me to dance for the last 4 years. I've been on and off your show, so...
I don't dance, but maybe we'll get Gary King to do the dance for
Possibly.
you instead. Yeah, maybe I'll learn. Who knows? But you also eat marshmallows as well.
For breakfast.
For breakfast, yeah. This is not a good start, is it?
It's
really,
the
for
only
day?
breakfast that you serve when visitors come on your show.
We're going to get pasted here, so I think I'm going to move swiftly on.
Okay.
Actually, get back to what MPs should be talking about. And of course, there's an absolute multitude of things that we could start with, really. And the obvious place is the general election. It's been called. Right or wrong, do you think, Mrs. May?
Absolutely the right thing to do, but I have to put on record, I'm just as surprised as everybody else. On Monday, I was on my way to Wakefield. I sit on the Home Affairs Select Committee, and we were on our way to Wakefield to hold a public inquiry. I was sitting opposite Yvette Cooper and a number of other parliamentarians. So if you thought that I was shocked, you should have seen the face of Yvette Cooper whilst we were on that train.
What did she actually say?
She couldn't say very much. I think there was a lot of shock, and then she had to excuse herself for a bit and put together a speech, and we hot-trotted back to Westminster. We didn't get back in until the afternoon, and by then it had got pretty frenzied, and it was sinking in. We've got 7 weeks, and I know, because I've had a lot of contact with constituents who've been emailing in and bumping into me as I've been out and about. It's another election, I know, but it's the right thing to do, and that's the beauty of having a democracy. We get to have our say, and what we need to ensure is we've triggered Article 50 because a country made a decision, and there's no going back on that. And we need to make sure that the Prime Minister's hand is as strong as possible when negotiations begin in a few months' time. And it's absolutely right that, we secure a majority Conservative government to enable her to secure the best deal for us and the best deal for our friends in Europe. Because we've just made a decision to leave the political union of Europe, but we still want to make sure we have a good, harmonious and trading relationship with Europe. But I must say, it feels like the longest week in politics, but that's politics every week.
Some would say Mrs. May already has a majority, and some would say she's already got the support of a large majority of the House of Commons and indeed the House of Lords. She doesn't really need to do this. She's doing this for political reasons. Some would say. You
when we were
don't agree
triggering
with that.
Article 50, there was a huge confusion which way the Labour Party was going to vote. They were making statements from the front bench, were being contradicted by their MPs at the back. The Liberal Democrat MPs, I believe there are enough to fill a taxi. They couldn't organise which way they were going to vote, which is absolutely shameful. And also the SNP were doing the best that they could to stop her progress. And the country has made a decision. And if we are going to continue at a pace where we do not know which way the House of Commons is going to vote, or other parliamentarians and opposition parties play politics, it does not enable our Prime Minister to get the best deal for us going forward, and that is the sole objective of securing a majority to strengthen our Prime Minister's hand, because there's no going back on the decision this country made during the EU referendum.
Well, it really leads me to the name of Gina Miller, who was the one that made sure that Parliament got a vote in the first place after the referendum.
Right.
She was the one that went to court to do that. She's now raising money to start a tactical voting campaign.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think to that?
Look, people vote for lots of different reasons, and I think most people vote because they have huge confidence in our democratic system and they want the best representative for them locally and the party that's going to represent them nationally. This whole idea of tactical voting, I don't come from a family of politics. There were no parliamentarians that I had contact with growing up. We were obviously involved in voting at elections. We weren't interested in tactical voting. We just wanted the best deal for our family and our
but they're
country.
talking about getting different parties to sort of work together. A bit like the sort of thing that happened in Richmond that saw Zach Goldsmith
So basically,
unseated.
she wants a coalition of the Liberal Democrats, the Labour Party, and the Green
Scottish
Party and the
Nationalists.
SNP.
Yeah,
well,
I think so.
You know what? If you think you want a coalition of chaos versus a Prime Minister who's put down her idea, her vision, and we've got a white paper on how we're going to Brexit. What do you want? What does the country want? We need to support our Prime Minister going forward in these negotiations, or we're going to put our faith in parties whose leader could potentially be Jeremy Corbyn. And we've already had 12 Labour MPs resign because they won't vote for him or stand behind him as leader of a party. So we're asking the public to support a leader of a party whose own MPs won't support him. It's very chaotic, and we haven't got time for that nonsense.
No,
We've
but the
just
unfortunate
got to be
thing
focused
is,
on what we need to deliver.
you have people, you have certain people within the Liberal Democrat Party who are still insisting that the Brexit decision can actually be reversed, and that's what this coalition is all about.
The Liberal Democrat Party has a history of saying whatever is the most favourable topic.
But is it favourable to say we want to leave the European Union when the majority are actually saying, OK, we've got this far, we're going to leave the EU, but Tim Farron, Nick Clegg are still saying if they can, they will stop Britain leaving the European Union, which is what Gina Miller is also trying to achieve.
What's interesting about the Liberal Democrats is that they will ask for a referendum until they get the decision that they want. It's not about the decision that they want, it's a decision that the country will make. And if you want to vote for Liberal Democrats and have referendums every year until you get a decision that you're comfortable with, then that is a decision that you can make.
So what about Nicola Sturgeon then, who one day earlier this week said it's terrible, we need a general election. She'd got a mandate, but Mrs May hadn't. And then the following day, of course, Mrs May called the election, and Mrs Sturgeon then said that was terrible too.
Well, this is how ridiculous this is.
But isn't this the problem we've got with all politicians?
But it isn't the problem, because, you know, we are now having an election. The Prime Minister will have a mandate, the Prime Minister will deliver a manifesto, and Parliament will have a schedule to work to. You can't on one hand say the Prime Minister does not have a mandate when the Prime Minister calls a democratic election, then fall about and say, oh my goodness, now she's asking for a mandate. You know, what's interesting, I've only been an MP for 2 years, but being in Parliament and watching the SNP, all they've done over the last 2 years is talk about independence. They could have spent the last 2 years focusing on delivering and arguing for policies and legislation to help Scotland, and they haven't done that. We've got a Prime Minister who's made it very clear that she wants a very strong hand to start negotiating in a month's time, and a general election with a strong Conservative majority will enable us to deliver that.
Mrs May's all for that, but then you see there's the other side of the coin. This is not just about Brexit anymore, is it? Because Mr Corbyn is also putting up things like free school meals for those aged between 4 and 11, a £10 minimum wage he's putting up. He wants to see an end to the rail franchise system and renationalise the railways. He wants more money for unpaid carers as well. He wants to, take the private element out of the health service. All those sorts of things, which to most people they seem, well, what's wrong with that? Absolutely.
If you can come up with ideas which then aren't feasible because you need to raise the taxes to pay for them in the first place. We've legislated a number of issues over the last 2 years. They had every opportunity to put in amendments and try and secure funding. But to have a leader of a party putting forward ideas that Labour parliamentarians do not back or do not see how they can be feasible shows you that these aren't sensible plans coming forward. Let's see what manifesto they produce. Let's see how they're going to back up the manifesto. I chair the all-party parliamentary group on ageing and older people, and care and carers comes up a lot. These are issues that we're already campaigning on. To say this is a new manifesto pledge from the Labour Party, we're already working on this on a cross-party basis.
So, I mean, with all of these bits that Mr Corbyn's coming up with, and none of it seems unreasonable, except for the one thing that you've actually mentioned, it has to be paid for somehow.
Coming up with ideas that we're already progressing on, or we're working on in a cross-party fashion and saying these are brand new ideas. Look, let's see what he comes up with. Let's see how many more Labour MPs stand down before they are adopted to be MPs or candidates for the Labour Party. This morning, Chuka Umunna, who sits on the Home Affairs Select Committee with me and at one time was seen as a potential leader of the Labour Party, could not bring himself to say that he wants to see Jeremy Corbyn leader of the party or even Prime Minister. So I think let the Labour Party decide who they want their leader to be and who they wish to see as Prime Minister, because most parliamentarians in the Labour Party can't back Jeremy Corbyn.
Not quite how the voting's going, though, is it? Or the betting, should I say? I gave you a bit of paper a little earlier on about the...
You've just handed me a note that says that Jeremy Corbyn is rising in the polls to be the next Prime Minister. This just tells me how hard we have to campaign and defend our fantastic record, because the only other option, if Theresa May is not at Downing Street, is Jeremy Corbyn, which is what the polls are showing. So I will, I'll be out campaigning absolutely hard on my record.
One of the things that he wants to see improved is the amount of money spent on care for the elderly. We know that.
Yes.
The government aren't exactly doing an awful lot in terms of actually increasing the spending. There are just more and more people in that bracket that need help. So there's not actually any extra money.
No, but you've just nailed it there. Because there are more and more people getting older and living longer, which is a great thing. The level of care that's required is for a longer period of time for a number of different health issues, and we do need more money. More money has been allocated, but the numbers are increasing. And the way the families behave now has changed from a generation ago. More and more people are living by themselves or are widowed and require
house
care.
building doesn't allow for families to live together, does it? Really,
More
the
people
size of the houses.
require care that has to be professionally paid for, and there are a number of issues that need to be dealt with there. Is making sure that being a carer or working in the care industry is a job that people want to do, making sure those jobs are paid well enough for day shifts and night shifts, making sure that people get the right care in hospital and then are be able to come home or come to a care home that they want to go to and get the right appropriate care. It's not always just about funding, even though funding is an issue. It's about making sure the whole package is available in the community, within the family.
But it's the general thing that goes with the Conservative Party at the moment is the austerity bit, which is to do with making, there's not enough money for caring at the moment. There would appear to be a large campaign to get extra spending for the health service, which...
Can I just interrupt
again,
there?
Yeah.
There's been more spending on the health service than ever before. We were the only political party at the last election to agree with National Health England to actually give them the money that they wanted to spend on the NHS. Not even the Labour Party committed to that. So money on health has gone up. Money on education has gone up, but has to go further. And, lots of budgets have improved, but we still need to keep moving further. It's absolutely right. There is so much more that needs to be done.
Yeah, well, the problem is that your opposition seem to think that not enough is being spent on the health service.
We do need to spend more money on the health service, but apart from that, we need to make sure the health service is managed efficiently, so care is delivered where it's needed and people are provided with care and then are enabled to go home or go to the next place where they need to get some respite, and that is an issue as well. It's not always just about money. It's having a broader discussion about how can we improve this situation. Can I just touch on something else, which is an issue in my constituency and I have been campaigning on for over 2 years, which is looking at funding for my schools. And there is an unhealthy understanding of what is deprivation, I believe. And there are certain schools up and down the country that get far more money than my schools in Wealden, because my Wealden schools don't fit into what is the traditional idea of deprivation. So these are issues we need to discuss. Being deprived shouldn't just mean coming from a household of parents who are unemployed. It should also mean if you've got no other school to get to, you live in a rural area, there are few public services, and we need to ensure that deprivation means much more. So rural schools get as much support as those in inner city London and inner city Manchester. So it's not just about allocating more money, it's about making sure the money's spent in the right places and having a broad understanding of how society's moved on and how funding can be spent more appropriately.
But it's going right the way across the board at the moment, isn't it? With very, very few people happy with the level of... It's
not true. It simply isn't true. The hospitals within the catchment area for my constituents, there is one hospital that I must say that has had some particular pressures. Most people have a positive service in the National Health Service. Most of parents have a positive experience for their children at school. We've got record levels of unemployment. In this constituency, we have 0.9% of people unemployed. People are comfortable, but there is more that we can do. Of course there is.
Two things then I'm going to come to. One is social care, where there definitely isn't enough money, and the second is to do with the free school meal places, with a number of the nurseries that take part in this saying they will not be able to afford to do it because the government simply is not paying enough money for it.
Free school meal places that Jeremy Corbyn
you're talking about the 30 hours that are coming up, which was originally a Liberal Democrat idea in a coalition government that is now being implemented. That at the age of 3. I think all school children, all children of that age are going to be entitled to 30 hours of free nursery.
The entitlement comes with a budget with every child. So when that child attends a nursery, there is a budget that comes with that.
They're actually saying that they cannot afford to do it because the government aren't paying enough to actually do it.
We need to understand how some of these nurseries are run. Some of these, some nurseries are going to have to manage running them. because every child comes with a budget stream, and other nurseries, which are obviously businesses, are going to have to evaluate how they run their business, which is delivering a nursery place. But to say that when every child comes with some funding to enable
some
that child,
funding is the thing, but not sufficient funding, and there's the difference. There doesn't appear to be sufficient funding for this particular scheme.
When there are nurseries who are running this successfully, we need to look at those and work out how they're running it successfully compared to those that aren't. And it always goes down to how they manage their business. But it's absolutely key when you've got young children who, parents, mums in particular, who want to go back to work, who want to make sure that the kids can have some sort of care when they're working, that care is provided, which is why there is a sum of money that goes along with those children for their nursery place.
But the same thing can be applied to social care as well, with the number of care homes that are struggling because they're having to pay their staff minimum wage at best, because the amount of money that's coming forward from the government does not allow them to operate well. And it's the same problem.
The issue that we have with care homes, and I visit them regularly because I have a number of them in my constituency, is by actually the competition for people who might want to work in a care home to possibly working in some other industry on that level of pay is very competitive. And the issue that we have is trying to keep people...
That's the only jobs there are.
No, that's not true. The issue is keeping people engaged in the care industry, making sure that they realise there's a career path for them to go down. But the problem that's come up recently is by increasing the minimum wage, especially for people on night shift, is what's making it difficult for care homes to run their businesses, because they feel that they don't want to pay more than what they're paying their staff at the moment. So I'm afraid your assumption that they're not being paid enough isn't always correct. It's also about the fact that we're asking, under new rules, that care staff are paid a basic minimum wage, including night staff, which for some care homes makes it difficult for them to run their business. And it is an issue. I believe that people that work in the care industry just do not get the respect that they deserve or understand how valuable their job is, or they can go on to a further career in health. And we need them to understand this is a great way of getting into the health industry, and this is the first job that you can do and move on to other things if you so wish to.
Well, my thought on that is that if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. That's the first thing.
But I've just said to you that the minimum wage has increased.
The minimum wage has increased, but it's still that's what it is. But these people are worth actually more.
I agree
than that, and they're not paid more than that. Unfortunately,
and in a constituency like ours, if you're a care worker that's going around a number of villages delivering care, we just don't compensate enough for the time that you travel, the fuel that you pay for. And I've always argued with the county who delivers the package of care and the amount of time that a carer provides in-house care, that I've always argued that it just isn't enough. So I've been campaigning on that as well.
So are the government at some point going to be making more funds available to county councils for adult social care?
I hope so. That's what I've been campaigning on. If you look at my record at Parliament, if you just Google...
No, but the Conservative government, are the Conservatives going to do this?
Yes, of course.
Happen?
We've just got to make sure it also is spread out widely enough so it hits constituencies like mine as it does elsewhere in the country.
Because it's quite a talking point at the moment, because of course we do have the county council elections going on at the moment, and I'm guessing you're out and about campaigning as well.
I'm campaigning with my fantastic council candidates, whether it's in Uckfield or Crowborough or Helsham. We have a great team here. And I must say, getting involved in politics, whether it's at a local level or a national level, it's quite a bold thing to do. So we should always support our representatives, whether at a local or a national level. And there are some things that people will say we could have done more efficiently, and there are other things that, councillors do very well that you get very little thanks for. But we've got a great team in Wealden and East Sussex, and I'm very proud of them, and I'm very pleased to be able to work with them over the last 2 years, and hopefully I can work with them if and when I'm elected at the general election.
We've just had a parliament where we've seen the rise of abuse of MPs and others to do with politics on social media. Joe Cox was the ultimate piece of abuse, with a very, very tragic ending to that one. But I'm looking at our Facebook page right now. This is actually being FaceTimed, and some comments on there. One lady's put... I met her at the school gate a few years ago and thought she was lovely. Nice comments to get.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, then we get below another comment from someone who's going to remain anonymous at the moment. A real nasty party member, vote her out. This is the sort of thing you have to face. And then hands in front of mouth equals do not want to speak.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure myself, but I don't think it's terribly complimentary.
I don't look at social media very much because it tends to be anonymous people who want to be abusive. And I accept that my job involves helping people when they're in a dire situation. So you tend to meet people when they're quite stressed and anxious. So, you're not going to get thank yous or not. And I can't always help people who require help because it's not within my gift. But it is interesting. We've had that terrible terrorist attack in France, and I was prepared for most things being elected as the Member of Parliament 2 years ago for Wealden. What I wasn't genuinely prepared for was the level of abuse, and it hasn't been the easiest of 2 years. But you know what? The election was called on Monday, and one of the things that I had to do, which previous parliamentarians probably haven't had to do, and no doubt if you're a male MP you don't have to do, is ring my local police and go through my security and my schedule, which is something I never thought I'd have to do in our wonderful country and in my wonderful constituency.
But lots of people do. And somebody's actually come back with another comment as well. Sam says NHS has a £22 billion funding gap with a demand of plus 4% a year, while the health services budget will go up by only 0.2% every year. That's an issue. Quick win should be scrapping billions on Trident.
Well,
that's the sort of thing you're facing.
Yeah, but you can't sort of compare and contrast two very separate things.
No, but it's where the money is, isn't it? It's what the money's being spent on, which I think is the argument.
The defence of our country is absolutely vital. And when you make decisions that you can't then turn around swiftly because you're taking away a whole generation's security, then you've got to think it through. Well, it's very emotive to say if you scrap this, you can get this, but that's just not how it works, unfortunately. And I am very proud that I've been on the Armed Forces Parliamentary Scheme assigned to the RAF, and I've spent the last 2 years training with them in my own spare time to completely understand how important it is to make sure that our defences are strong and that we take good care of our armed forces. So I'm afraid if you've got issues with Trident and issues with our defences, then I'm more than happy to have that discussion with you in a civilised way. But we have to make sure that it's absolutely necessary that we keep supporting our defences.
Yeah. Two questions then, really. One was to do with the budget, the overseas aid budget. Yes. I mean, lots of people are now saying we should scrap that and use that money on other things, as we're now so short of money at home.
Why doesn't Sam come up with that option?
That hasn't come up. That hasn't come up there at all. That's me just asking.
But it's interesting why Sam hasn't come up with that option.
I don't know. I can't speak for Sam.
Our overseas aid budget delivers phenomenal work, especially when it's dealing with an emergency. And because the world has just become so much closer, making sure that other countries are safe and stable makes our country just as safe and stable. But I have always said, since I was the Conservative candidate back in 2013, that having a passion on ensuring that we spend an X amount of money, not backed up with a passion to make sure that money is spent appropriately, is a concern for me. And if we've got evidence to show that in certain countries our aid money is being misspent, we should rethink.
Okay, I've got to stop you there because I've got a couple of things that I've got very little time. One is, and you can answer this a bit later if you want to. How is her work with Lyme disease going? Is what Jean's asked, and then she's also asked, we must have Trident. She's agreeing with you.
Can I quickly go? Lyme disease is being run as a successful campaign being run by our magnificent parliamentarian called Michelle Dolan, because she unfortunately was struck down by it. So the campaigning is being done. Forgive me, I don't know all the details right now, but if she emails me to my parliamentary office, we'll get a response to her.
Okay, and the final thing is that Val has said, can Nus join forces with Maria Caulfield to try and persuade Theresa May to pay a visit to Wealden and Lewis during the election campaign?
Oh my goodness, I will be delighted. If she can email me, I'll send it to number 10, and as many people that want the Prime Minister to come, if they let me know, we can try and put some pressure on number 10 to try and get a visit. OK, well, we will see you in a couple of weeks' time, I do believe. Good luck for now. Thank you.
Well, get buried in that work. Nus Ghani for now, thank you.